It's showtime.
Down to business. I got my wild cherry Diet Pepsi, and I got my blackjack gum here, and I got that feeling. Yeah, that familiar feeling that something rank is going down out there.
Gutter.
The gutter. It's a night spot. The gutter.
Gutter.
The gutter.
Gutter.
It's a night spot.
Whiskey, quick. Dead.
Greetings. Unfurl your bedrolls, take off your boots, and grab a seat around the fire here in our contemporary story time on the prairie tonight. We shall feast upon the meat and sinew of the classic and terribly endangered The Western tonight. That particularly dusty narrative that for multiple generations harnessed the impressive team of imagination and individualism to pull a wagon full of stoic cowboys and manifest destiny. Once, it was the American dream made real on reel after reel in the cinema and in literature across the page. A sprawling modern Shakespeare stage, dressed not in togas or armor, but in boot leather and the cold steel provided by Samuel Colt. But what about now? What has the Western become in our jaded, cynical age of backbiters and toe cutters? Has the immorality and paper-thin developed stories that proliferate the plain broken the once untamed stallion that was the Western of yore? Has it been relegated to the nostalgia bin of memory? Or has it been reborn, screaming and gasping for breath back into the grim reality of the 21st century? Tonight, we will be using a singular example to answer this question, but only in relationship to where it falls within the answer that we provide. Does our selection tonight drag the Western forward, or is it another in a long line of desperate, feeble attempts to change the unchangeable, to force the square peg of the Western into the round hole of the quick and dirty Netflix-pitched modern quick-form story? In this era of storytelling where nothing is sacred, where every genre must be disassembled, mocked, and rebuilt as a dark mirror of its former self, does this story elevate the Western or simply exploit it? Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in the space between the trail of boot prints in the sand and the glint of that previously mentioned Colt on the horizon in the setting sun. Or perhaps it doesn't matter at all. After all, the Western was never about the story itself. It was how the story made us feel, alive, defiant, and yearning for a world where the horizon promised freedom and liberty, and most importantly, hope. With that being said, welcome to the gutter. Everyone ends up here eventually. It is only a matter of time. Joining me, as always, is JP. JP, how are we doing tonight?
I'm good, man. But more importantly, how are you doing? Are you You sweating for time? You been busy over there?
Yeah, I'm just closed out hopefully my last 70+ hour week for the last 6 months. Hoping
We,
that I can finish up some Christmas shopping and be relaxed for the holidays for a change.
well, I'm sorry I've been neglectful in my duties of suggesting music, but that intro music was a bit of a letdown. Was that from a Ford heavy duty commercial? Stock Western music?
I was actually really cropped for time this week, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I basically just lifted the audio from Distillery's preview for the book, so that's what that was for. So I apologize for the disappointing audio intro.
That's fine. Just do better.
I certainly will try. Turning to the chat, we've got Unhinged Entertainment, Jason Bascom, great to see him. Mahalo, well, good to see you, man. Henry Bemis is in the chat, as is Jason Sandberg. Always a pleasure to see all of you. So yes, as advertised tonight, we will be talking about one of the Distillery books that way back at the beginning of the year, when we reviewed Devil's Cut, that both JP and I thought looked interesting, and that was the Blood Brothers' Mother. And this is issue 1. We'll be going through that. But what we have before us tonight, and I'll open it up for JP's commentary here shortly. But in my opinion, you've got it's a story of threes. And not just because there are 3 brothers on both sides of the coin. There's really 3 things going on. The first issue is split almost right down the middle in regards to each side of that coin and the introduction. It's all issue 1 essentially acts as a prologue to the story. It sets everything up. And then issue 2 turns down the path of where the actual story will be focused. Issue 1, especially the first half of issue 1, is very beautiful. I thought it was an epic Western introduction. The second half of issue 1 was a little more disappointing, and we'll get into why. And then issue 2 unfortunately took a turn that I really didn't see coming. And I'm kind of disappointed about that, because I was hoping that this would be a Western that we could herald. Unfortunately, I fear it is. It's not a failure, and it's certainly not a deconstruction of the Western genre. It just kind of falls into that zone of just another story. And JP, overarching, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think what we have here is, in that same vein of the Western and the dual, we have what are actually dual narratives weaving into one another. My bird's eye view of it is I just don't think it's very successful, at least not in these 2 first issues.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you there. This book, as I mentioned, is from Distillery. Now, Distillery is right up there with Ghost Machine. They both kind of were birthed around the same general time frame, and they're another creator-owned enterprise that's up there with a lot of what we've talked about already quite a bit. It's written by Brian Azzarello, drawn by Eduardo Rizzo. Issue 1 you can get for anywhere from $5 to $10. Issue 2 you can get for anywhere from $5 to $10 as well. Issue 1 came out in May of this year. Issue 2 came out in September. Issue 3 is slated for release sometime in the first quarter of 2025. And I think that is my first kind of commentary or an issue with this. The way the narrative is set up, by separating it from May to September and then the first quarter of 2025, it's really dragging it out. I think this would have worked better if it was a tighter release schedule. Having it spaced out, I was really excited after reading issue 1, and I was waiting until issue 2 came out, and issue 2 was a letdown. Partly because, again, I think it's that buildup of time, man. Like, I really liked issue 1, and then when issue 2 drops, it's kind of a, oh. So I'm not really looking that forward to issue 3. I think if they were more condensed, if it was more of a monthly or a bi-monthly, I don't think that letdown of issue 2 would have been nearly as much. And we'll, like I said, we'll get into all the details surrounding why. But I'm curious, JP, what were you mentioned that it was kind of dueling narratives that try to merge together and are unsuccessful. Do you want to wait until we kind of get into the meat before you discuss that, or did you have some topics you wanted to discuss right off the bat?
Yeah, I think I'll wait till we unpack it a little bit. Oh, I just said unpack. I hate that. I hate it when people use that word. Why do they use that word?
Well, as always, I do have to turn to Mike because I think this is a Mikeism. This is a Mike book. It's a little heavy-handed, just a little. But we open again. Eduardo Rizzo's art, especially, I cannot compliment his work on this book, especially book one, enough. It is really beautiful. I really like the layouts. I really like the structure. The lettering is fantastic. With the narrative of the script, almost like he's telling the narrator's telling the story, which he is. He's recanting it, but we get a really nice build up, moving up from the boots to the hands to the eyes as you go down the page. It's just a really nice character introduction. And we've got everybody saying hi to everybody else in the chat. And Belmont Press has joined us. Great to see Belmont. He just funded Pencils Down. So congratulations, Belmont, man. That's great to see. And as we move into page 2, we get more of an introduction, again, with the character of who we are dealing with here. And he's in a prison. He's being let out of his cell. We don't know the reason why. And this is where I think, again, you get that going back to Power Pack. We talked about that. You had that yellow
consummate
tone.
yellow.
Yes, it's that yellow tone that didn't work there. We talked about it. It was just overarching and bland. And here it works because of the richness of the color that's complementing it. It's used as like almost that background template, and everything lays on top of it. And it really works here. And I think that's a really nice contrast to where we left off talking about Power Pack. I still can't believe we talked about Power Pack. But it's a sign that the color, Eduardo knows how to use color, and he's using color very, very well on these pages. And I've got nothing against the art in book one. I was really, really impressed. And as we go through it, you'll see essentially why. It is stylized. You've got some nice work here. And then we get finally the full face introduction of who you assume at this point is our main protagonist. And again, really excellent use of shadow. Especially on that through the iron bars on the floor, just really, really nice stuff. And then we really start moving in that he's being freed and he's being released from the jail. And as he walks out, he meets who you find out are his brothers. Any commentary up to this point, JP?
I mean, I can't really articulate it, but I don't like looking at the faces in this book. It's weird and uncanny to me. You know, but I'm struggling to find the words for it. But like, if you go back 1 or 2 pages, like especially what I'm assuming is the warden. I don't know. I can't find the words for it. I just don't like looking at these faces. I don't know what that style is, but I don't know. It's just ugly to me.
Gotcha. I think it comes across, at least to me, it comes across as something like, as far as the art style goes, it's something you'd find in a short in heavy metal or Epic Illustrated in the late 70s, early 80s, only it's being done in a 48-page book. I think it works. One of the reasons I like it is because it is different. It's not your standard rote style. With regards to the warden's face, there is some inconsistencies in the art as it goes through. From page to page, from character to character, but I think that's just part of the style. I never got the impression that it was like unintentional. And Henry Bemis, trolling the hell out of me, says, "So you're saying this is as good as Power Pack?" Thank you, sir. Zaid Comics has joined us. Great to see Zaid. Always a pleasure. And Henry Bemis says, "Unsettling." Yeah, I think you could probably go with that. But so he's released from prison. He meets up with his brothers, and again, we get this. I have to compliment both Azzarello and Rizzo. They do a really good job of hitting all of the marks that you want to see in a Western. You want that backshot silhouetted scene to the sun. You want gun belts. You want open shirts kind of at the collar, and you want that sense that the environment is hot and it's sweltery, or it's the other side of it is you want to see it when it's cold at night. You want those contrasts, and they do a really good job of that, both with the imagery and then with the color of indicating what you're supposed to feel, whether it's warmth or cold, depending on what color they embrace for the background. And I really enjoyed that. Again, I think book one is a massive success. With the exception of a couple of instances like this, up till now, we've had really nice stacked panels. Everything's very vivid. You get nice structure. It's excellent use of the page. Even at the top there where you've got panels 1, 2, and 3, it still works. And then you hit a page like this, and there's so much wasted space. And I don't understand why artists do this, but we seem to be seeing it more and more as we review more contemporary books. And it's something that you tend not to see. I mean, and I'm not like I said, I like Rizzo's work on this, and it's just a handful of pages throughout, but I think it's a miss because to me, all that white space takes me out of the book. You're drawing me away from the environment that you spent multiple pages at this point already creating. And I don't understand the insistence on doing this. Did it have the same effect that you at all, JP? Or
Oh, the wasted space? Yeah. But I mean, while we're here, we should probably talk about how the horses are drawn, because I know that's really important to a lot of people.
but I didn't have any problem with how the horses are drawn. I'm not going to get into that matriculation of detail, and this is what I'm talking about. Like you see a page like this, and it's devastating because then following it, you get this, and this is fantastic. Again, we're right back to stacked panels, and I think this book would have been much more successful if they just would have stuck with a stacked panel look. And especially following that rule of 3, which they really seem to hit home. And I think it's a home run. And sometimes you don't need to do this. Like if you look at this page, right? You could make panels 1 and 2 into maybe 1 and an inset, make panel 3 the middle panel, and then out of the panels 4, 5, 6, and 7, that really can be all one panel. There's no reason not to make this a stacked panel set so that it flows with the rest of the book. But you hit this right now, and it's a giant roadblock. And it frustrated the hell out of me. And we have been joined by Dale A. I think the faces would look better with the different colors. Yeah, I can see that. I think the faces are probably going to be one of those things where you either love it or hate it.
No, look, here's my thing though. Okay, I agree that as a whole the colors are great, and I know that they took a lot of inspiration from the Manifest Destiny art with how orange everything is. But man, if you go to the next page, it looks like a fucking atomic bomb is going off behind them.
Yeah. Well, and we saw this a little bit with Canary too, with Dan Panosian. He kind of did the same things with the backgrounds. The difference there was I felt the characters were more upfront in the image, and it kind of washed out that heavy sense of orange that you got.
I think it
color.
looks fine if you darken the silhouette in panel 2 like it is in panel 1.
Right. No, and it becomes a washed out effect. And there is a little bit of that throughout this. I'm not going to nitpick too much because otherwise I really like the colors in this. It didn't bother. And while we're complimenting the color, I do want to go back and give a nod as well to Azzarello, because the narration here is very beautifully written. It fits the style, it fits the substance. It's what you want in a Western as far as the language goes. It's a little clunky at times, but it makes sense in context once you get the reveal for why that is. And here we're starting to show that, again, that cooling effect of the color. He's using color to indicate the transition. Had no problems with that. And here we start going, he's released from the prison. He joins up with who you find out are some of his brothers. They join up with the rest of their crew, and they have come across and pilfered a wagon train. And it's essentially utilized. It's a plot device, right, to teach you a little bit about this main character that you've been introduced to. Because they find out that they're laughing about how they've been brutalized, and he just sits back and starts drinking. And then you get the reveal that they brutalized these people. They killed the dogs. And this is important. It's not just how they killed them, it's the fact that they killed the dogs. And then he goes around to the corner of the wagon, and they've got a woman who's dead or dying, who's been brutalized as well. So it shows you that absolute savagery of these people. And his response is to make sure he killed. I assumed he killed her. Is that what you like? He takes it. There's basically a butcher knife in her mouth, and he takes it out and kills her. Is that how you took it?
Oh, well, no, I hadn't, but you're much more well versed in this language than I am.
Well, no, and that's what I'm saying. This this page really confused me with its panel structure.
Well, I mean, in a much broader sense, this whole scene it creates a kind of thematic confusion that only deepens the further into the story we go. But I can't really touch on that now. So
Right. Well,
when we, oh,
we'll revisit this. We'll go
yeah,
back to
yeah,
this
yeah.
page later. But then he comes out and he kills the guy that was kind of the one that was bragging about what happened. And again, we see that broken panel structure that I think it really bugged me in this book, because we get it again here. And again, I'm digging the art. I like where the story's going. The only critique I have, and I don't know why this is being done, but I've seen this in a couple of books semi recently. It's panel 4 with the no face, but the eyes are there.
Mm.
And I want to say I know what they're trying to harken back to, but I can't remember the exact issue or series or what artist did it. But there is a Western book that does this, where every time they do a barrel of the gun point, you just see the eyes from like the 70s. But I can't remember for the life of me where it comes from. And I spent more time than I should have digging through a bunch of books trying to find it, and I couldn't. So you're just going to have to trust me, or I just made it up in my head. One of those two is probably true. But sometimes the classic 6-panel grid is all you need. Yes, and I think this story, I think it really would work better if it was just stacked 3-panel pages and then 6-panel grid, for the pacing and how Azzarello wrote it. Not to give any, again, I'm not taking anything away from Rizzo, because I do like it overall. And then Zaid said, did this book just come out? This is issue 1 of the Blood Brothers Mother. Issue 1 came out in May of this year. Issue 2 came out in September. This is a distillery book. Issue 3 is coming out beginning of next year at some point. And Zaid Comics is stealing that panels with the eyes. Yeah, well, they stole it. So by all means, man, lift it. Be inspired. And John's Longbox has joined us. Greetings to John's Longbox. I still have yet to read your book. Some stuff came up last weekend, and I just haven't gotten around to it. But then he goes and he finds that one of the guys has a rifle. And this is, again, it's another plot device to tell it. And this sequence, I didn't think was needed. I don't think the next, like, arc, like, you've already established what this character, he saw savagery and he responded. So even he's walking out of a prison, you know he's a criminal. But then we establish that there's a line to his criminality and his brutality. But now he's going to go back and extract revenge. And I didn't understand what this added into the story of that character, other than possibly what we're going to get
Something further down the road.
Yeah, so we'll touch on this in a little bit. I just want to point this out, that he gets the rifle, and then he goes back to the prison, and we get this. And this again is not needed. They're doing this to show that the warden's a bad guy, right? He's exploiting the women of the town. And I don't understand why it matters, because he walks out of the building and he gets shot, and the guy shoots him with the long gun. And okay. And then the knife thing, he pastes the knife. And when the guy was released from prison, he called him, "Hey, amigo, I have a feeling I'll see you soon." And he says, "I'm not your amigo." And he's got like balls on his chin. Like it's just what? Like it doesn't, it takes you out of the story, man. I get it. It's a joke, but I didn't think it registered with the serious tone of the story up to this point.
Yeah, and again, it's that kind of, it's like that moral inconsistency where we're meeting a character. Typically, that character in almost any other story is going to be the protagonist.
Right.
And then we are shown him doing a moral thing, right? He encounters savagery, and he stops it. He does something that is morally good, or about as approximate to that as you can manage in this world. And then you go to him doing something that is clearly morally wrong, right? and then we later we'll get to it later, but eventually he becomes the antagonist, and you see those kind of inconsistencies throughout the story, throughout the introduction, really.
Oh, absolutely. And even here, when you look at this page, you've got a really nice establishing shot with panel one as he's exiting. I agree with the use of the inset panel. It works because he's looking at the sign, then boom, to go down to panel two, he's reading it. Panel three, I think, is a miss. Here, I would have up in the hills, you show
Yeah.
who you think's the protagonist with the rifle, and then as a transition in the gutter, you have blam or bang, and then you get the result of he gets shot in the forehead, and then the result in action. I just think that would have worked better. The look on the face doesn't really do much for me.
Yeah, because it's a repeat.
Right. It's that standard thing that we've talked about repeatedly over a lot of modern books where you're dwelling on the same scene. Why are you doing that? You're not moving the story forward. You're building what? And I don't understand the what. What's the goal there? Now, standard sin and a lot of this is like this used to be just in indie books, and now it's bleeding over into mainstream books because Distillery I'm going to call as a mainstream book. When you do a scene change, for the love of God, give me a narration indication that we are somewhere else. Where is this taking place? Is it 30 miles away? Is it a week later? Because now we're in a different spot. And I think you don't have to do it in panel one because, okay, you've got a cross. It could be the burial of the warden. Yeah, I don't know. But
Well, they
definitely in
were
panel
just
two.
talking about burying that family too.
Right. So give me something that, granted, panel one makes a great transition. I like the use of the cross because you've got multiple connotations for it. But then when you shift down to panel two and you're getting vengeance is mine, vengeance, even then, maybe not. Maybe wait until you get the reveal of it's a preacher. And that's fine. But at some point in these panels, you need to give me a transitionary that we're in a different locale now. You can't just rely on the imagery to sell that because I don't know, is this just up in the mountains and they've continued up into the mountains and now they're in a green space versus the desert where they were before? Maybe I'm being a little pedantic. It's something that frustrates me where I'm lost. Don't lose me as a reader. Why are you trying to force me out? Bring me in. Let me know. And it bugged me a little bit. So here we get it again. This is where the colors shift again. Before we had that yellow hue. Now we've got a little bit more green because we're in a little bit more of a lush environment. I like the preacher. I love again, we've gone back to the stacked panels. I liked this because now we're going back, like Henry Bemis said, we're drifting more into that 6-panel grid. And also, not only are we drifting into that 6-panel grid, but going way back to over a year ago, where Warren Ellis was talking about beats and melody. Now we're hitting, right? We're playing with fire. We're understanding that we've got beats and melody, and the imagery and the dialogue work together to form that song that brings you across the page and through it. And the story is getting wrapped around it, and it's beautiful and it's perfect execution. But man, it's getting a little creepy because the kid crushes the toad in his hand.
And this would be the protagonists, and they are doing something, and we're introduced to them as they do something where one of them does something that is morally wrong.
Right.
Also, I had a quick question.
Yeah.
Would those rosary beads, would that be correct?
With what? Here? I'm
Just
not
like the
Catholic.
denomination, the time.
I don't know on that. Not being Catholic, I don't know. I don't. Is it a rosary or is it just a necklace or
Yeah.
a bookmark? I've seen that too, where I've seen Lutherans use just
Okay.
a necklace with a cross on it as a bookmark. And I think it's to invoke that same rosary sense, but they're not using it as a rosary. It's more of just a symbolic. So don't know on that for sure. Student of God is here. Great to see Student of God. And scrolling down. John's Longbox is scared when I review his book. Hey, man. Oh, no, he killed the toad. Yes, he did. Because we have to show that everything is morally gray. Yawn. But moving on, we get him feeding the squished frog or toad to the dog, which is, again, like, what the hell is going on here?
I don't know. Yeah.
And I don't mind the art. We're setting it up
Oh, look,
on
it's orange o'clock.
right. Again, I don't mind the art. I thought the art worked well. And again, I like the narration. And it's these boys are their mother married the preacher, and now they're here in a mining town. And we get a really nice. I loved this segment of it where it's the back and forth, and there's a lot of double meanings going on in the language that's being used, and I really liked that. And the father, who's a preacher, is not being. He doesn't get presented as an idiot, which a lot of times you'll see. He's playing verbally with the responses that the boys are giving, and I liked that. It's not as sharp as I think Azzarello probably could have made it. I felt that this is kind of he's hitting on something, but he never gets to exactly where he wants to go with it. But I don't think he cares because of where the story's going. And so we get this. Now again, we get the dogs. That's important. We get the family going back and forth again. And then we get evening comes up, everybody settles in for the night, and we get 3 riders come in. And the mother's terrified. And the riders come up again, we get the dog barking, and the father makes some exchanges, and we find out that they're here for the mother. They're here for Anna, only she doesn't go by Anna anymore. And it turns out that, yes, the guy that got released from prison, this is his girl, and those boys are his boys, and she's moved on with her life, but he hasn't. And I like the shot of the gun, but again, man, too many inset panels. There's too many panels that just don't do anything to move this along. They become roadblocks.
I don't like the shot of the gun because we saw it on the previous page, and it's not. I think it ruins the flow.
I don't mind it because I think it is a callback to several pages ago, and it's Chekhov's gun. You're gonna show it. You've shown it back here. Oh, I'm sorry, back here, but you're just reminding the audience. I don't mind that. I do mind just the structure of the page in general. And then we get the gun has to be used, so we get that, and of course they immediately the brothers draw, and you get the contrast of the light inside the cabin versus the darkness outside. No issues there. Again, I liked the art. I don't mind this one with the inset panels. Again, I just don't see why. There's no reason to. You don't need. You can make panel 1 still be panel 1 and bring it entirely across the page, and then do a 1, 2, 3 shot like you did with the warden when the warden was getting shot previous in the book. This whole sequence works. It's trips, brothers are scared, he falls, gun gets dropped, and then click, 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 click. Everybody draws. There's no reason to layer it this way. And again, I don't understand what the artist was going for. And I found myself, it's every few pages, the deeper I went into this, the more I'm like, I don't get what he's doing. Because this doesn't, to me, it doesn't work for fluidity of reading. But then the preacher steps in and disengages, and I like that. And they give him a couple of days, right? So you get 3 days. We'll come back and get the mom, and all be forgiven. But we're not going to get the boys. And we get more of the exchange. We get the focus on the eyes. I like the focus on the eyes. I have no problem. Everything works here. Again, nice contrast. Darkness outside, light of the cabin, the family, the warmth. It works. No issues. Then they ride off, and you get the family discussing. And I like the discussion here of the father with what he's saying. Don't be sorry. It's fine. And I think that plays more into where it went with issue 2 than anything else. But I thought it was a good. This is as much as sometimes as people will do pages like this, and you feel like it's too heavy of a plot device foil. I think it works here. Did you have any thoughts on any of these pages, JP?
Yeah, I mean, like you had mentioned before, the Chekhov's gun, right? You show a gun, you have to fire the gun.
You don't have to fire it, but you have to use it. It has to be used.
Right. I think this book is a never-ending series of Chekhov's guns that don't get shown, and like I don't think I think it's trying to be clever more than it is clever. So to give an example, we're introduced to this man. he is introduced as the hard ass, super strict preacher man. Like it's almost a trope of a character. And then 2 pages later, he unbecomes that. Trying to think of you have 3 days. You do not have 3 days. You have 0 days. And I that kind of start and stop, show and then unshow, tell and then untell is just at a certain point it's just annoying.
Right. Now we're getting into that quickly because everybody settles in for the night, and then one of the boys is awakened by a creak, and you've got somebody sneaking into the house. And it's one of the brothers, one of the guys that previous was there. And he said, "But you had 3 days." Well, he changed his mind. And again, I liked this page quite a bit. But here we're going to go back into the confusion because we get the scene. The preacher's got the double-barreled shotgun under the sheet. And we get a shot. And then it cuts to there's feathers in the air and he's coughing. Like, what happened?
Yeah, I genuinely had no idea.
Like, why are there feathers? What did he shoot? Did he shoot the mattress? Did he shoot a pillow? How could he shoot a pillow? The gun was in front of him. He couldn't have shot his pillow. Like, I didn't get it. Like, what happened? And again, it takes me out of the story. Going back to this page, though, the one boy, kind of important, gets smacked. I liked the blood in the lower left panel. I liked that touch. That was really nice that it mirrors the blood in the previous panel on his lip. I thought that was a cool thing that they did. And there's a lot of stuff like that where it's like, man, this really worked. And there's a lot of stuff that didn't. Like this page. Like I didn't like it. It again, like why he's already dragged the guy out of bed. Does he need to kick him in the face?
Yeah.
What you've already established that he's a bad guy. He reneged on given 3 days, and then he's back the same in a couple hours. And then the wife just immediately goes and drops her wedding ring, which is fine for her character arc. And we're dwelling on the ring a little bit more than we should. And then you get a little bit of a strange exchange between him and the preacher. And then I get the one brother's going to sit with the boys, and that's fine. But we're dwelling on it a little bit much. Like what? And then he goes to bite the kid's ear. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And it's just at this point, I'm like, man, I've liked the book up to this point, but you're starting to lose me. And then we go again to the end, and this is, I thought, worked really well. But this is also where I realized that the book is not about the 3 adult brothers. It's going to be focused on the kids because, well, you realize it a little earlier than this, but it becomes very clear that the book is focused on them because the preacher's last name was Blood. So they're the Blood brothers. Anna is their mother, and it's going to be their story of getting their mother. But I want to focus on that first page, or the first panel right there of this page. That rooster, that's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
That is a fantastic panel. Just A+, knocked it out of the park. I even like the rest of the page. This whole page, especially, and this is important moving into book 2. 2 of the brothers are bashed in sunlight through the window, and the other one sits in shadow. And I really like that as a metaphor for where things are going for the brothers, especially after reading issue 2.
Yeah, I mean, I wish we could read and enjoy a different story in this world.
Yes, that is an excellent way to put it, because this one just, man, they've lost me at this point. So we get them seeing the ring and picking it up. And then where are we? Now we've got dead dogs.
Which is a callback to the page before with the ring. And I actually like the use of shadow here. The silhouette.
I do too. Where they lose me is the dead dogs, because the dead dogs are now a callback to the wagon train, where the dead dogs were a precursor that brutalization happened.
Yes.
And savagery happened. And the gentleman that was released from prison had an exception to that. And he executed the men. And this is the because what we see as the brothers walk out is that their father, Preacher Blood, was executed. He was crucified. So they brutalized him. Now, is the dogs being killed an indication that the only reason that the main antagonist did anything was because the woman was brutalized, and he didn't care about the dogs, he didn't care about the men, he only cared because the woman had been brutalized? Is that the intent? Because I didn't get that.
Or that he's just an agent of chaos.
But if he's an agent of chaos, like, why did he go back and kill the warden? That's not chaos. That's premeditation.
That everything is gray.
Right. So if you and that's what I'm saying. If you take the execution of the warden out of this, then it leaves that antagonist much more. He's an agent of chaos, because before it's like Two-Face in Batman, right? He flipped the coin. I'm going to kill the guy. He's a savage. But here we're going to flip the coin and no, now I'm going to be a savage. I'm okay with that. But when you add premeditation into it, and he goes back and extracts vengeance on a character that only called him an amigo, and I'm going to see you soon because you're a criminal. I didn't buy it. Like, it just didn't work. I loved the book, for the story, but I hated that character for that reason. So my recommendation is, for book 1, buy it. It's a $5 to $10 book, 48 pages. I think it's a good value. I think there's some great stuff here. It's not an A+ book. It's like a high 6.5, 7 out of 10. With a 10 out of 10 never actually being feasible, and a 1 out of 10 being something like Void Indigo. But and the ending was a little contrite. Having the preacher be crucified is just a little too heavily tropey.
A little heavy-handed.
Yeah, just a little. And then we move into book 2. And so book 2, I could not finish. So this is the second week of the Gutter where I was not able to completely read the material that we were talking about. And it's not because it was bad. It's just because it goes off in a direction that I have no interest in. Similar to last week. It just got to the point where I'm like, I'm not going to waste any more of my time reading this. It starts off with the brothers, and again, the art styles kind of changed a little bit. That kind of bugged me.
A little Mad Magazine.
It is. It feels a little Mad Magazine-ish. And I'm not sure where that brilliant use of color and the brilliant layouts went, because we're just cramming panels in now.
Oh, I like in panel 3, the previous, yeah, they're going to go off for revenge, but unfortunately that one brother, he's got rickets.
Yeah. And you move through, like, again, we get moments of brilliance, like that first panel, the overarching panel. I like it. It's good. And then you get shots like this, which are just great. Like, this is just fantastic. It's a beautiful page. You get everything. They're moving out. Really liked it. And then later you get segments like this, which are, again, stunningly beautiful. And they're going through their journey to get revenge, to get their mother back. And they see smoke on the horizon, and they follow that smoke, and they come up over the hill, and you get terror on the 2 younger boys' face, and the older boy has a tear dropping. And you get this absolutely epic 2-page spread of an Indian village that has just been slaughtered and is burning. And again, they've lost me, because as beautiful as those are, like, all it's showing to me is just the brutality of the round, and it's getting to the point where there's no hope. There's no hope.
Yeah.
Everybody's bad.
Yeah.
And it works in a certain context. But there's never, in book 2, there's never a redeeming moment. Like, they get their stuff stolen. Somebody shows up and offers to help them, and he's helpful for a short period of time, and then he steals all their stuff. And then they show up at a fort with or they're saved by a bunch of soldiers because they're dehydrated in the desert. And then the person that stole their horse gets hung. So there's cause and effect there, and there's a response. But then we go right back into the same methodology, and we repeat and we repeat and we repeat. And at the end, they introduce a female preacher where there's a little bit of hope, but you get the impression that there's more there than there needs to be. And I'm assuming issue 3 is going to play again with that. There's hope, there's no hope. There's hope, there's no hope. Everybody's a crook. Nobody's good. And it's just, it's tiresome.
Yeah, like you had mentioned, like, cause and effect. And for me, a good story is when you set up a cause and then the effect comes a little bit later than 1 page later or 2 pages later.
Right. There's a little bit more of a build up and a payoff. Absolutely.
Yeah. So book 2 begins, and they're setting off on their journey, and the story takes the time to establish how they got their supplies. We sold everything that we had. We got a horse. We got this. We got that. And then as soon as they set off on their journey, the first thing that happens to them is they lose everything. I was like, well, then what was the purpose of setting that up? You know what I mean? Like, it's like that just happened 2 pages ago.
Yeah, it feels forced, it feels rushed. And again, I don't think it would feel as bad if the release schedule on this was a little bit tighter.
Mm.
Because I'm curious, I am slightly curious about book 3 is book 3 going to reel some of that in? Were they doing that just to accelerate and show like maturity in the boys? Because children grow quickly and they mature quickly. So are they doing this fast pace, just boom, 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 to show you that they're learning as they travel, and we're going to settle back down into the story? I don't know, because I have to wait another couple of months before I'm going to see book 3.
My question was, who actually is the main character of the book? Because the brothers haven't shown. We're 2 issues in, and the brothers haven't been shown to be capable of anything. And the name of the book is The Blood Brothers' Mother, meaning that is the mother going to be the main character, and we just haven't gotten
Right.
there
Well,
yet?
and I didn't even cut any of the panel or any of the pages to show, but that's the
Yeah.
other thing is, as the other set of brothers, the conflicting side of the coin, the antagonistic side of the coin, they're talking about, well, maybe we should go straight, maybe we should become bounty hunters, because there's no worth in being bad anymore. We can't get rich off of it. But the mother's willingly traveling. She's not trying to escape. She's even armed. Somebody tries to assault her and she stabs them. So she has a knife. She willingly engages in an act with her former lover, who's the father of the boys. And there's no sense that she's trying to escape. So she's morally ambiguous. Everybody's morally ambiguous. Nobody's a good guy. Nobody's a bad guy. There's no foundation here. And she even throws shade on the Preacher Blood in book 2, saying, I just bit my tongue, as he talked about forgiveness and redemption. And it's like, well, where are you headed with this?
Yeah.
It's not your standard reconstructive or like subversion of a story. It at times in book 2, it's like they had here's what it seems to me. They had a really great idea. Azzarello had a great idea for book 1, and he started weaving a great story, and it feels a little Scott Snydery. Like he got to a certain point and didn't know what to do with it.
Or he just got done reading Blood Meridian.
There is that. One of the things that this book is really everybody mentions in all of the reviews is it's like Blood Meridian, and I'm curious.
Really? I thought
it is. They say it's Cormac McCarthy, and
No.
I'm so this is not the place. Cormac McCarthy took a genre and did something to it that is amazing. And Blood Meridian's a fantastic book. I only would have read it. I only read it because your recommendation, and I'm damn glad I did. But what I've seen since I've read it is that's bleeding through a lot of things that has tainted the Western in a way, because everybody's trying to do the same thing, akin to how Watchmen did the deconstructive superhero, and now everybody's trying to do that still 30 years later. It gets tiresome. Do something original. And I thought, and I still think, issue 1 for that reason is good, because I think he started doing something different and then he fell into a trope, or he fell back on just something, whether he had just read Blood Meridian or wanted to encapsulate that feeling of hopelessness. It just doesn't work in book 2. So book 1, again, strong recommend. I think everybody should go check it out. Book 2, my recommendation is to wave off. What are your thoughts, JP?
I will wait until I need to know if there's a scene where they are pissing into the dirt to make gunpowder, and then I'll be able to make a recommendation. Although I do find it to be pretty funny that the running theme on the Gutter this past month has been book series that start out straight and then veer into the gutter.
Yes, yeah, we actually indirectly have done that. It was not intentional, but that always seems to happen. Every month, outside of pumpkin spice season, we always seem to kind of stumble into a theme. And sometimes it's intentional, but in the last few cases that we've done it, it is not, for sure. But speaking of that, we have intentionally opened up a couple of episodes in the 90s. We're at episode 86 right now. We're going to be moving into, obviously, we'll have our Festivus episode to close out the year for our airing of the grievances for the calendar year of 2024. And then, but moving into January, January's got a couple of open ones. Those people that are supporting the show via the Patreon, which is in the show description, have suggested some great books. We'll be looking at some of those. But if you guys out there who are just standard listeners have anything that you'd like us to take a look at that we're not aware of, or we haven't covered before in the gutter, by all means, man, give us a shout, shoot JP or I a DM. I'm pretty sure JP's DMs are open. I know mine are. Hit us up. Let us know. We'd be happy to take a look at pretty much anything at this point. Like I said, we do have some plans, but I did want to open up some episodes for some suggestions from the chat and our audience that supports us. So I think that's going to do it, though. Blood Brothers Mother, issues 1 and 2. Yay. Any closing thoughts there, JP?
Oh yeah, I posted a banger of a video today. If anybody wants to go listen to me rant about an eggs Benedict for almost 10 minutes, it's worth a listen.
I did listen to it earlier, and again, man, as always, you somehow managed to make food reviews entertaining. So thank you for that. But with that being said, I think that's going to close us out. I will be dropping the link to the chat if you'd like to join us in the back room, as always, because the gutter relies on you guys. But yeah, otherwise, have a great night, and catch you next week. Have a good one.
This is blood for blood and by the gallons. This is the old days, man, the bad days, the all or nothing days. They're back. There's no choices left.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.